Jordi, thank you so much for joining Expat Experts. It's great to have you here. We just met virtually for the first time, but we are both originally from, I'm close from Barcelona. I don't know exactly where you're from, but we are both Catalans. So we needed to switch a little bit language also. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Mark. Thank you for having me. And it's glad to have a fellow Catalan speaking in English and traveling the world.
Yeah. Maybe just starting from the beginning a little bit for a snapshot of our listeners. Where are you originally from, and what are you calling home now? I know that it's a very tricky question for you, but let's go to the origins first.
Right. So, yeah, my name is Jordi. And as my name implies, I'm from Catalonia. I was born here in Barcelona, raised nearby. And I started traveling at a very young age. I was 22. And it was like my first solo trip
Mm.
outside of not only my hometown but my country with my first job. And my first job was an airline pilot, so it was like a tough a tough first job, or first official job, of course. Before I was like a waiter and I worked at airports while I was studying. But my first trip just was like the first step to a nomadic life, because when I landed in Austria, which was my home for 7 years, that was just my base. This is where
Mm.
normally I park my airplane. But I was traveling. I made this map. I think it's like I made like this Google Maps, putting pins on
Mm.
all the cities I was traveling to, and I think it was like more than 50 cities all around Europe and north of Africa, east of Russia, and that was like my normal adulthood. So this is my beginning, my travel story, the beginning of my first trips as an airline pilot.
Cool. Which kind of plane were you flying? Like a commercial one, or?
Yes, so I started flying with the CRJ 200, which probably not many people will know this model, but it's a super small plane. It fits 50 people, and I love this plane because it was originally like the plane for the rock stars. So it was like normally like a private jet.
Okay.
It was like an 18 seater, but it was such an efficient, powerful machine that soon airlines started thinking, why don't we make it less glamorous and add more seats? So that's when many regional airlines started buying this plane and converting them to a passenger seater. And I love that plane. It flew. I think it had like a range of 4 or 5 hours. So my longest flight was three hours, but normally we're like two hour flights, which means that I was always in the same or nearly the same time zone. So I didn't suffer from jet lag, which is something
Okay.
that I asked uh, at my airline when they just recruited me when I was 22. And then after this one, I was flying for Austrian Airlines, and it was at the beginning of the financial crisis of these
Mm.
2000s, right? 2008. So because of the crisis hit there as well. So they had to merge a couple of airlines and sell some planes and try to normalize the fleets, so then it would be easier and cheaper to maintain. So after this plane, luckily I didn't lose my job. Many people lost their jobs
Mm.
at the time. I could keep it. I could keep it, but they retrained me into another plane that was a Fokker 70 and Fokker 100, which probably nobody knows what does it mean. It was not as appealing or as sexy as the CRJ 200 that I flew before, but it allowed me to fly the same routes. So I was flying the same. I was flying passengers, and of course, airplanes have like normally they have an airplane is like a tube like that,
Mm.
but when you're in an airplane, you don't see this curvature that much. That's because airplanes have like two floors.
Mm.
So the lower floor, which is a little bit smaller, it's for the cargo, for the bags or for the newspapers or cargo.
Mm.
And then people stay here on the top. That's like a normal seater. Of course, then you have the double deckers with two
Yeah, the
passenger floors, and
upper
then
layer.
yeah.
Yeah.
but this is the type of plane that I was flying, which is the most usual plane flown in regional airlines. And yeah, so that was for passengers, cargo, but mostly like I was lucky again as well because I was flying passengers, and passengers like to sleep at nights, so that means that I could sleep at nights as well. So my time schedules, either even though there were some days that were like hard, most of them were like during daytime.
How many years did you work as a pilot?
So I was there for 7 years, although it's not like 7 full years because I reduced my schedules as long as I could because flying is exhausting, and I was just flying 15 days a month. So it was like 1 week on, a couple of days off, 1 week on, and then 15 days off. And that allowed me to as well to go back to Barcelona where I started a new company, and I was doing like many different things and traveling the world.
Cool. I really need to put you in contact with Parimal, which was I think the first interview of the first season of the podcast. He's a colleague of mine, and he has an aviation podcast. So maybe I could put you in contact also.
Definitely happy to talk to pilots and to airline and to crews. So happy.
He's super passionate about planes, and he interviews pilots mainly and talk about plane stuff. So I'm pretty sure you would have a great conversation.
Happy to expand on that, but not for you, not for your audience, because I know that sometimes it
No,
might.
I leave that to Parimal in another episode.
Right, let's do that.
At some point, you made a leap. So you were already more or less talking about founding first startups, first companies. What inspired you to transition from flying to going to a co-working space and start funding stuff? Like, what was the moment in your life that triggered that?
It was, and we have to go back to the 2008, 2009, those crisis days. Think about like where were you? So in my case, when I was there, it was painful. Like everybody was talking about like this big recession. All sectors of the economy were somehow affected. Some were more and some were less. But I think it was like as an adult, the first crisis I really felt because I was in charge of my own life. So that's when I started thinking about doing other things. So that's why I joined university while I was still a pilot. So when I
Okay.
was flying somewhere, like I was bringing my book, so the crew would go maybe have a trip around the city, and because I've seen the city many times, I would stay at the hotel reading and studying. And I studied multimedia. That is like a university degree that combines art and computer science. Because pilots, we have to be like very oriented, very goals oriented, KPIs, dashboards, all that, and you tend to forget like your creative side. So I wanted to like combine my two the two sections of your brain, and because of that, I graduated in multimedia, and my final degree project was a startup, and I launched that. The same time I presented the final degree project to the university, I also was lucky enough to get a seat on a startup incubator in Barcelona.
Mhm.
So I was doing like three things at the same time: being a pilot, finishing my degree, launching this startup, and it was like a lot of things going on. And for 2 years, I was able to maintain these two lives, like pilot and startup entrepreneur. But then there was this moment that I said, all right, I need to make a decision. If I'm in a plane, I need to be thinking about my passengers, not about my clients. And if I'm leading my startup, I need to be thinking about my clients, not my next flight. Where will it be? So that's when I decided to say, okay, let's cut ties. I've been a pilot for 7 years. It was a great experience, but I need to do more things with my life. I'm more passionate, and that was at the time when and this might sound uh, contrarian here a little bit. There was a time where entrepreneurship was hot, was cool in Spain, where there
Mhm.
were like many programs. Everybody
Yeah.
was, because there was the crisis, and the government couldn't pay all the subsidies or take care of all its citizens. So the only way they had get rid of us as citizens was like, no, you can do it. You can be an entrepreneur yourself. Why don't you do it? So I got caught in that
Yeah.
wave, and and that's why I decided to start my own company and did that. And after I was like this as a startup entrepreneur for 7 years
Okay.
when I had to shut down my company because after 7 years we couldn't keep up with the uh, pay for the development with our clients. And at that time, I said, "All right, I need to rest." So I rested as a I became a consultant because I knew so
Mm.
much about startups that I consulted for others, and I rested. I rested because when I was this startup entrepreneur, I was traveling a lot. Uh, Traveling is always part of my life.
I notice patterns of 777 and then and
Yeah,
and traveling.
and there is I have to dig deeper into that, and maybe you know about it, but there is something with the number seven. It's something psychological. You know, like there is this number of the 10,000 hours.
Mm.
When you do something for 10,000 hours, you become an expert. There is something with the seven. It's like brains are wired this way. I need to dig deeper into that as well.
Sure. And so you in both lives, so 7 years plus 7 years, 14 years of either traveling because it was your job, so you were a pilot, or either traveling because your startup brought you to travel. No, at the end, it was also your job. So,
I like to paint it in different ways. It's like at the
mhm,
beginning, somebody picked my destinations. And on the second phase of my life,
okay.
I was able to pick them because I was deciding where I would go to find my next customer or my next potential partner. And now I'm in the third phase of my life where I do not, because when I was a pilot, I had like this benefit that not many people can have is that I was traveling to the same cities many times a month. So to me, it was like a scouting process. I was able to study the cities to know which city I liked the most. And I
Mm,
didn't do that by reading Wikipedia, Lonely Planet articles or whatever. No, it was like I was there every week, so I could spot things. But again, nobody can do that. It's too expensive to discover places by just going to everywhere. And so, but somebody picked the destinations for me. Then on the second one, I was able to pick based on my business interests. But now on the third phase on my life, where I like to categorize myself, where am I now, is that now I don't pick based on my business interest, but based on my personal interests. So now I
mm,
travel looking for like-minded people. So I go to places to where I know there is people like me. So I don't travel, I don't know, to visit some local landmarks or museums or the typical touristic activities that tourists do. So those are like the three types. I think that like, maybe somebody in the audience can think of themselves. You don't have to be a pilot to travel to somewhere that your company tells you. You can be any type of commercial business developer.
yeah,
They tell
sure.
you to go there. And then the second one, if you're an entrepreneur and you pick one sector, then probably you'll find destinations based on that business interest. But the one that I'm enjoying, and I'm not saying that I didn't like them, they led me to the path where I'm now. That now, wherever I see people, maybe I found online communities or I found local communities that talk about the topics that I like. I just get into there, and if I make some online friends, then I can go and meet them in person. But this is to me like the stage of my life where am I at the moment.
Cool. So you are fully a digital nomad right now, like you work from wherever it you like, let's say like this. Do you have a country or city where you consider your base, like or
Yeah,
you're fully independent, location location independent, let's say?
yeah, and exactly. The more I just came back now from a trip from Tarifa
Mm,
at south of Spain, like it's at the at the edge of Spain, and I was having like these conversations with many digital nomads, and I started to see a trend. So now my interest is digital nomadism, so that's why I go to all these type of places, and I like to confront my points of view with them, and I see that there is this question that you just made me: what is your base? I start to see that people don't like to have one base. They like to have three or four bases around the globe. So but they want to keep them. So for me, at the moment, my base is Barcelona, but I'm scouting many places because there are some months of the year that I don't like Barcelona. So that's what I'm trying to say is that now I have one place I call my home, but I'm open to discovering other new places. So that's why I like listening to your podcast, to listen to stories of other travelers that you bring here. So this is like the beginning, like the seed. You're planting the seed to, okay, this city is interesting, or this place is interesting. Okay, then I can reach out to them and go and explore.
Cool. It's very nice. That's maybe the last question for a little bit of your journey story. Like, you've been a digital nomad for quite some time now. Did you ever think of going back or thought about going back to a more settled life, in the sense of like, okay, until here, so undoing what you did until now?
Yeah, and I think it's part of the process. I think that nomads, and I go back to the historical or the prehistorical definition of nomad. Like, we were nomads because we were not happy with what we had at the time. What I'm trying to say is, like, if the land I'm staying here doesn't offer me food or shelter, then I have to pack my things and move on a couple of kilometers until I found a place that gives me that shelter. But then we learned how to agriculture and how to grow our own, or keep our own food. So that's when we decided to settle down. So I'm using this parallelism to do it right now. This is the same. I'm traveling all over the place because I'm not happy with what the place I'm staying now offers me. But I know that there will be one moment that I will find a final destination and I will settle. And this, I think, this is like the part of the journey. We cannot we cannot be traveling forever.
Forever.
The nomads I'm talking to, the average age is like 40. So nomads are quite old, and it's exhausting. So you don't have the same energy when you're 20 than when you're 40, and maybe you want to settle. But imagine being a nomad with 60, and there is this group of nomads that are like senior nomads, but it's a different type of travel. It's like more slow nomading. So yes, it's part. I know I will settle. I know I will.
At
It's
some point. Yeah,
so
but
at some point, yeah,
at some point, life also might force you to settle. Like, it's impossible. Like, when
definitely.
you are 80,
Yeah, exactly. And now for me
it's
it's easy because I live alone. I don't have any wife or kids. I have to take responsibility. But and I know nomads that they travel with their families, but it's more complicated.
it. Of course, suppose another challenge on top of everything.